This truly fabulous diamond necklace was ordered by the French king Louis XV, who was madly in love with the former courtesan Madame De Barry. A total of 674 diamonds of exceptional purity have become the most important ensemble of these stones in the history of jewelry. Alas, you won't see them in any museum of the world. Their mysterious destiny ignited a huge scandal at the royal court in France in the late 18th century, and the flames of this scandal burned the reputation of Du Barry's foe, Queen Marie Antoinette, and moreover their incredible story lays in the foundation of the French Revolution. This event fills me with horror, once said Goethe. Watch this video to form an opinion of your own. So, we are in 1772. King Louis XV is in his last years of being the absolute monarch of France. He basically devotes all his time to pleasure and leisure, often spending it in the company of his lover, the former courtesan and now the chief royal mistress, Jeanne du Barry. I've told you everything you need to know about Jeanne and her shady path to the heart of the king in my previous video. And we even looked at the French-speaking Johnny Depp in the role of the sovereign. So make sure to watch that video to learn about the events that preceded the story with the necklace. Back to the diamonds. Louis XV decided that he'd love to pamper Jeanne the way no one ever did before. I mean, for anyone in history. So, since Jeanne was very much fond of jewelry, the king decided to proceed this way and ordered an outstanding necklace of total of 2,842 carats. This is over half a kilo or more than a pound weight. Looks like he took part in the creative idea of this unusual piece of jewel art. A row of 17 diamonds from 5 to 8 carats adorned the neck and was fixed in the back by stripes of silk. In addition, there were 3 festoons adorned with 6 solitary pear-shaped diamond pendants. Then, imagine these 2 long ribbons of 3 rows of diamonds passed over the shoulders and fell down the back. The 2 front ribbons in the middle supported a 12-carat solitaire. Well, it must have been something. The thing is, the necklace was never worn by Jeanne du Barry. The king died when the 2 German jewelers, Charles-Auguste Baumer and Paul Bassange, were still working on this generous commission. The new king, Louis XVI, sent Jeanne du Barry away in exile the very moment he ascended to the throne, and the new queen, Marie Antoinette, didn't even want to hear about this piece of jewel that was destined for the former foe at the court, whom she wholeheartedly hated years before. Again, learn everything about the reasons behind the food in my video about du Barry. This way, the 2 German jewelers were left in an awful, disastrous situation. They had already acquired all the diamonds and were adding the last finishing touches to the finest cutting of the stones and their assembly into this peculiar composition, when the commissioner becomes history and they are left with no money. You see, Baumer and Bassange were quite famous jewelers of their time. They have supplied numerous precious pieces to the royal courts around Europe, from England to Spain to Russia, so they had the personal funds to begin work on such a project, investing their own money, having in mind that their efforts will be generously reimbursed when the necklace was completed. And the suggested compensation was really generous. Records say the sum of 1.6 million golden livres, which could be a rough equivalent of about $30 million. Back in the day, one could buy 3 outstanding chateaux in France with huge pieces of land around each of them. Do you guess what happened next? Well, Obviously, they couldn't find a new buyer for such piece, and they were really desperately searching for one. Obviously, the first one who they offered it to was the new queen, Marie Antoinette. That was so naive. She called it a horse harness and officially declined the offer. Poor jewelers, they offered it to other royal courts, in vain. Then they tried to make a more sneaky path to Marie Antoinette and tried to persuade her husband, the king, to buy it as a present for his wife. After the consultation with the queen, he once again refused and said that this money would better buy France a new ship. A small digression here. Looks like Marie Antoinette was really trying to save some money for the country and wasn't as a prodigal as she was painted by her contemporaries. We'll talk about that later. Years passed and the broke jewelers once again approached the queen in private, begging her for compassion. Imagine how irritated she must have been. Again this jewel, again the name of Jeanne du Barry. Yet she tried to be as kind as possible and suggested they deassemble the necklace and try to sell the diamonds one by one. And then, of course, she kicked Burma out again. And here we are now in 1784. 12 years passed since the commission of the ill-fated jewel, and suddenly Beaumer and Bassange are approached by some Countess De La Motte Valois, a close friend and confidant of Marie Antoinette, who informs them that the queen secretly desires to finally buy this piece for herself. They will get the full sum in 4 installments, yet no one should know who is the mystery acquirer. Hallelujah! The day has come. The impossibly happy German jewelers hand over the necklace to Madame De La Motte, and that's how the culmination of this story unfolds. Oh yeah, everything, absolutely everything in this introductory fable of De La Motte was a lie, even herself. But first things first. Jeanne de Valois Saint-Remy was coming from an extremely poor provincial French family, yet of really impressive origins. She was a descendant of one of the illegitimate sons of King Henri II. I won't go into much detail about her troublesome upbringing, yet amazingly her story touched the hearts of some powerful well-wishers who helped her to make a petition in the name of the king to give her a yearly allowance as for the person of the royal blood. The plan succeeded, and meanwhile she secured herself a status of a married woman by tying the knot with some Nicolas de la Motte, who claimed to have been a real count, but in reality was just an adventurer and a swindler. The newlyweds were truly cut from the same cloth, and soon after the marriage the young couple reinvent themselves and appear in public as the Count and Countess La Motte Valois. To make it clear, they just invented the royal title, and that was okay in France of the day. Nobody was able to check it apparently, so this was a true paradise for fraudsters of all kinds. In addition, the new Count and Countess were, so to say, of liberal spirits, so they both had love affairs right from the start, which actually helped them in their shady business and the future necklace affair that immortalized their names in history. So here is what happened. The self-proclaimed Count and Countess were in constant need of money. One happy day, Jeanne de la Motte Valois meets the powerful yet foolish French Cardinal de Rohan and apparently becomes his lover in exchange for substantial financial support. Couple of words about him. Louis-René Édouard de Rohan Guimenet was a member of an illustrious French noble family. He received the hereditary title of Prince de Rohan and followed a straightforward career in the French church. But before that, he had spent several years in Vienna as the French ambassador to Austria. There he led a lavish and outrageously frivolous life, so that his behavior shocked the Empress Marie-Thérèse, who demanded the French king to send him back as soon as possible. De Rohan wasn't ready to give up unavenged. It is known that he wrote a letter to Louis XV stating that Marie-Thérèse, together with Prussia and Russia, was secretly planning to cut Poland into 3 pieces. When this letter finally came to Versailles, it strangely landed in the hands of the king's lover, Madame De Barry, who decided to read it out loud at a dinner party in a mocking tone. Marie Antoinette, then the Dauphine, the wife of the heir to the throne, was once again insulted by the former courtesan. No wonder she remembered the name of the guy who wrote this letter, de Rohan, who dared to scandalize the name of her mother, the Empress, and herself. Back in France, Louis René de Rohan received the title of the cardinal and returned to the court of Versailles despite the protests of Marie Antoinette, who apparently hated him. Rohan, in turn, was desperately willing to cover up for his mistake with that letter and wanted to win back the favor of the new Queen of France. His new acquaintance, De La Motte, masterfully played with his gullibility and affection for the Queen. Together with her husband and several accomplices, they prepared an ingenious plan. With her undeniable charm, Jeanne de La Motte assures Rohan that she's in fact a close friend, even a confidant of Marie Antoinette, and that the Queen does want to make up with him too. Here to the scene comes another lover of Jeanne and a family friend at the same time, Louis-Marc-Antoine Rétaux de Villette, who masterfully forges the handwriting of the Queen and compiles the fake letters from Marie Antoinette to Rohan, where she allegedly says how she secretly loves him and wants to become much closer than the court policy would allow. Foolish, right? Yet de Rohan tends to believe these fakes. The letters were always signed Marie Antoinette of France. If only he had any chance to receive the real royal correspondence, he would immediately recognize the forger's mistake. The Queen never signed her letters like that. She always used her name only, and never this of France. She was the only queen in this country. Why would she put that? And moreover, she herself was of Austria at the end of the day. Nevertheless, to strengthen the impression made on the cardinal, De La Motte and Rétaux de Villette arrange a meeting with the Queen. For that purpose, they hire a courtesan, Nicole Légué, who was known for her strong visual resemblance to Marie Antoinette. At 11 o'clock in the evening, she shows up in the gardens of Versailles, dressed in a similar dress once worn by the Queen. Her face is covered by a veil in the darkness of the late summer night. You know what that means. You may believe that the past is now forgotten. She barely says those words when suddenly there appears Madame De La Motte, together with De Villette, dressed in Queen's royal livery, playing the valet of Marie Antoinette, saying that the queens-in-laws are about to come by. And the courtesan dressed like Queen disappears in the dark. The next day, De La Motte and Rétaux de Villette ensured that the cardinal received another letter from the Queen, being thankful for their brief encounter in the garden. Say no more, right? De Rohan was convinced that he was indeed corresponding with Marie Antoinette and was ready to swallow hook, line and sinker. De La Motte didn't waste time. As if on behalf of the Queen, she asked the cardinal to become a middleman in the purchase of the famous diamond necklace of Du Barry. As if Marie Antoinette desperately wants it, but can't buy it in her name and wants to keep it secret for the time being. She will of course pay for it, but it must be Rohan's name and the contract, not hers. Wouldn't he be a lamb and indulge her with such a small service? Of course he would. To make sure he won't be suspicious, Jeanne de La Motte even engaged her another notorious friend, the famous Count Cagliostro, an Italian adventurer, self-proclaimed magician and occultist. The letter instructed a young boy oracle to say that if de Rohan buys this necklace for the queen, she will definitely forgive his past vices and in 3 years will make him prime minister. Cagliostro is God himself. Ron was a huge fan of the magician and immediately put his signature on the contract with Baumer and Bassange. According to the deal, the jewelers were to hand over the necklace to De La Motte. They thought she would transfer it to the queen. And Ron had to ensure the first installment of 400,000 livres was paid in 6 months. How imprudently, right? I think it all should have smelled like scam at this point for everybody. Yet it didn't. The moment De La Motte came into possession of the necklace, she, together with her husband and her lover, inaccurately disassembled it and divided the stones between 3 of them. Count De La Motte then swiftly fled over to London, where he apparently tried to sell his diamonds. Local jewelers were impressed by the quality of the cutting and immediately thought that they might have been stolen. They sent their representative to Paris, yet he found nothing, since at that time no one knew the necklace was stolen. So he returned back to London and authorized the purchase of the precious stones. De Villette was less lucky. He wasn't good at negotiating and ended up trying to sell his diamonds in Paris for way less than their worth. This immediately provoked suspicions, so he flees to Brussels and tries his luck there. And only Madame De La Motte, strangely, stays in Paris. When the time came for the payment, Ron asked her for the money from the queen. She didn't have them. While she tried to win for some time, Baumer, the French jeweler, was received at the court, where he apparently congratulated the queen on her purchase. Surprise, surprise! What purchase? That same necklace of the hateful Du Barry? Again? You must be kidding! What do you mean I owe you 30 million bucks? Well, correction, they had a different currency, yet you got the idea. Marie Antoinette got mad. The jeweler revealed that her other scandalous nemesis, Cardinal de Ron, was the intermediary there. No, that was too much. Through the king, she ordered that Ron was taken to Bastille for forgery and stealing the necklace, but first and foremost for using the name of the queen as a cover for that ghastly business. She didn't believe his own story that he was in turn fooled by Countess de la Motte, whom the queen didn't even know. Alas, that was the major faux pas of Marie Antoinette herself. She didn't want to take time, calm herself down and look at the strange case with due precision and attention, and was too quick to jump to conclusions. Looks like the courtiers believed Ron a member of the old noble family, and this misjudgment from the already unpopular queen didn't win her supporters in these circles. The second mistake was made by her husband, who gave Ron a chance to choose where and how he would prefer to have his trial, behind closed doors by the king himself or in front of the parliament. Ron chose the parliament, and boy, he was right. It was already 1786 and pretty much everyone in the country was already grouping against the royal couple. The Parliament of Paris was no exception. According to their judgment, Ron was acquitted on all charges. The public was saying that the Holy Father had blushed him, the king had blackened him, and the parliament will whitewash him. Alleluia! That means it was the indirect accusation of the queen, who was pictured as greedy for the ostentatious jewelry in tough times for the country, which wasn't exactly the case, as you might remember. Madame De La Motte was on the opposite, accused of fraud and then whipped, branded with V as voleuse, thief, and then sent to serve a lifetime prison sentence. The fate she eventually evaded, brava, since she managed to escape from prison and flee to London, where she released a memoir saying that she was an innocent soul and that it was awful Marie Antoinette who planned everything. Then her husband was condemned in his absence for the galleys for life. He didn't suffer much, having lived until 1831. Jeanne's lover, Rideau de Villette, was condemned to exile. Yet he was already out of the country, so he just went to Venice, where he also released a book of memoirs telling about his recollections of this fabulous era at the French court. Count Cagliostro was also put into jail in Bastille as an accomplice, but thanks to his lawyers, he was quickly released and expelled from France. And yeah, the girl who was dressed as Marie Antoinette and came that night in the garden, Nicole Leguet, was excluded from the trial, since she had just given birth to a child. And the real victim, Marie Antoinette, became a victim twice. Not only her name was outrageously used in this criminal affair, but looks like the whole country preferred to believe she was truly the one to blame in all that happened, as well as in everything that went wrong in France at that time. Everyone turned their backs to Marie Antoinette. Ghastly, humiliating caricatures and pamphlets about her were circulating everywhere, despite the efforts of the king to lawfully protect his wife. Cardinal swindler, the queen implicated in a business of forgery, what filth on the crozier and the scepter, what triumph of the ideas of freedom. This was a perfect summary of this affair given by one magistrate of the Parliament of Paris, and a perfect pretext for the cruel consequences of the first scatters of the unfolding revolution. In my next video, we shall look closer at the identity of this queen. As usual, I'll watch this famous film with Kirsten Dunst and we'll see how the reality conforms with popular fiction about her. By the way, I'm not saying Marie Antoinette personally had nothing to do with why it all ended up like that with France. Yet she definitely had nothing to do with this bloody necklace, the traces of which were lost forever. Who knows whether one or another diamond from that piece formed part of some famous or not so jewel still sparkling on someone today. Thank you for being with me, Jeanne de La Motte, and Marie Antoinette here today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to my channel to get to know more fascinating and incredible stories of the past. Have a great day. Bye!